Hello, welcome to this first video on the Book 6 Unit 3 vocabulary. On this video, we are going to be going over the pronunciation, the parts of speech, and the meaning of the words as presented on your Unit 3 vocabulary sheet. Okay, there's a lot of information to take in here. There's a lot of words this week, so we're going to try and move through them as quickly as possible. So let's begin. So the first word is a consensus. So pronunciation, consensus, consensus. And a consensus is a noun. It means an opinion that everyone in a group agrees with or accepts. So think about that definition. Can you come to a consensus on your own? No, you can't. To reach a consensus, you need a group. Can you come to a consensus if everyone disagrees? Well, no, you can't. So, if everyone disagrees, then you haven't reached an agreement. That said, it's okay to disagree at the beginning, as long as you reach an agreement at the end. So, to use in a sentence, you might say something like, after disagreeing for 5 hours, our group finally came to a consensus. This makes sense because at first our group disagreed, but then we came to an agreement that everyone accepted. Try and put this word consensus in your own sentence. The next word is diagnosis. Diagnosis. A diagnosis. Diagnosis is a noun. It means the act of discovering or identifying the exact cause of an illness or problem. Can you think of anyone who does a diagnosis? That's correct. A doctor does a diagnosis. How could we put diagnosis in a sentence? Well, using our doctor, we could say the doctor gave a diagnosis. The patient had cancer. Now, sometimes you use diagnosis in a different way, in a way where it's not done by a doctor. So, for example, if an experiment is having a problem, a scientist might want to identify that problem by giving his experiment a diagnosis. That is a way of saying the scientist is trying to identify the problem. However, usually a diagnosis goes perfectly well with doctor, and it's usually used in that context. The people who usually give a diagnosis are people who are healthcare professionals. Try and put this word diagnosis in a sentence. The next word is a major concern. One more time, a major concern. A major concern is an expression. Major concern is also a compound noun. Okay, it could be countable, so we can have major concerns, or we can just have one major concern. As a major concern, it means something important that worries or involves you greatly. So here, if we look at the picture, we see two people, probably a man and his wife, and we might assume that their major concern is their marriage. They might have had an argument of some kind. Bringing it to your student life, you might be the sort of student who shows up a lot in class but doesn't show up to test days. That would be a major concern. We could put that in a sentence. Not showing up to test days is a major concern. Why is that? Well, it would worry your teachers greatly, and hopefully it would worry you. That's because even if you're good at English in class, you don't get rewarded for it unless you show up on test days. That's really how you accumulate your grades. Try and put this expression, a major concern, in a sentence. Now that you've done that, think about whether this expression is positive or negative. It's a negative expression. We really don't like to have major concerns. This word is a nap. Let's focus on that little word. Nap. Nap. A nap. A nap is a noun. It means a short sleep during the day. So, do you take a nap at night? No. You take a nap during the day. Is a nap a long sleep, like 8 hours long? No, it's a short sleep. You can take a nap almost anywhere. You can take a nap at university, you could take a nap at work, or you could take a nap at home on the weekend. The important thing is that it always explains a short sleep during the day. Some people like to take a nap by leaning over their work, so when they wake up, they can restart their work with more energy. Other people like to take a nap simply just to relax, so during the weekend, if you don't have a lot to do, you might want to take a nap in the afternoon, just to help you relax that little bit more. Putting that word in a sentence, we could say, I like to take a nap after class. That way I have the energy to keep me awake for the rest of the day. Try and put this word nap in a sentence. This next noun is a power nap. One more time. A power nap. Power nap. Power nap is a noun. It means an extra short sleep in the middle of the working day. Pay attention to that being extra short. A power nap is a little bit shorter than a nap. A power nap will usually last from anywhere to 10 to 45 minutes. It's a very short nap. It's designed to give you extra energy so you can work or continue to work in the middle of the working day. So you take the sleep in the middle and then you can continue to work after it because you were given extra energy. How would we put that in a sentence? Well, you might need a power nap after all that work you did this morning. Remember, you have to do a presentation in the afternoon. Here we can see that a person is being kept very busy. They had to do a lot of work in the morning, and now they have to do a presentation in the afternoon. So they're going to have to try and grab something we call a power nap. Maybe a short nap in the middle of the working day to give them that extra energy. A power nap is usually done at your place of work, so you'd often take a power nap at your desk or on a chair or on a group of chairs like this. Unfortunately, there aren't lots of beds at work, so we don't really take power naps in beds. Try and put this word power nap in a sentence. The next word is treatment. Treatment. One more time. Treatment. Treatment is a noun. It's the process that is done to cure an illness or injury. Can you think of any treatments? Well, if I have something like the flu, the doctor might give me some form of pharmaceutical drug, like Uniflu. That's a form of treatment. It's done to make me get better. Another type of treatment is chemotherapy. Can you think what that's a treatment for? That's a treatment for cancer. It's done to make you get better from cancer. There are other kinds of treatments we can use. For example, if I go to a dentist with a sore throat, he may do something like a filling or possibly a root canal. These are all types of treatments. They're all used to help cure a patient. So, putting that in a sentence, we could say, the treatment helped cure the patient. So, who gets a treatment? A patient or a doctor? Good. A doctor gives the treatment, but a patient gets the treatment. Who else might give a treatment if not a doctor? A dentist might give a treatment, or a nurse might give a treatment. Try and put this word treatment in your own sentence. This next word is accumulate. Accumulate. One more time. Accumulate. Accumulate is a verb. It means to gradually increase over time or to build up. Don't be afraid of this word gradually. It just means to slowly increase over time to build up. One thing we accumulate is money. We don't start off with a lot of money, but over time, hopefully, we become richer and richer. We accumulate more and more money as we get older. What else might you accumulate? Well, you might accumulate things like clothes. Putting that in a sentence, you could say, I've accumulated so many clothes over the last 10 years. That means over the space of 10 years, I've gradually built up the amount of clothes I own. You can also accumulate other things like knowledge. For example, the more you learn, the more knowledge you accumulate. You're building up, increasing over time, the knowledge you have. Try and put this verb accumulate in a sentence. This next word is an advocate. An advocate. One more time. Advocate. An advocate is someone who publicly supports someone or something. Often, this thing they support is an idea, but it can be a person. Going back to the supporting an idea, what ideas might somebody be an advocate for? Well, you could say, I'm an advocate of global peace. It's a cause worth supporting. You could also be an advocate of a cleaner environment. So, you'd be a fan of green technology and not using dirty fossil fuels. You might be an advocate of human rights. For example, you might support the rights of children. So you'd be an advocate of children's rights. You can also be an advocate of a person. You can support a person in a certain way. So many parents are advocates for their children. They sort of publicly support them and want the best for them. An advocate will always want the best or want to promote the someone or something they are supporting. Try and put this word advocate in a sentence. Good. Now that you've done that, let me ask you a question. Can an item be an advocate? No, it can't. An advocate is what we call a someone. We can't have an item that's an advocate. Someone has to be an advocate. The next word we have is an impact. 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 Impact is a noun. It basically means an effect. So, looking at our definition, it says an impact, the effect that an event or situation has on someone or something. How would we put that in a sentence? Well, we could have a sentence like climate change will have a big impact on how we live in the future. That basically means that climate change will have a big effect on how we live in the future. Things like climate change and other global events like poverty and things like that can have an impact, but people can have an impact too. So you could say the next president of the United States will have a big impact on American society. Right. Try and put this word impact in a sentence. This next word is an interaction. 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 Interaction is a noun. It means a process in which two or more things have an effect on one another. So, putting that in a sentence, we could say social interaction is an important part of university life. What does that mean? Well, let's break that down. What is social interaction? Social interaction is a process in which two or more things have an effect on one another when we're talking about people. So, when people socially interact, we're talking about people having an effect on one another. It's basically meeting people, affecting people, and having them affect you. Try and put this word interaction in your own sentence. The next word is aspect. 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 Aspect is a noun. It means the part of a situation, plan, or subject. Here we've got the sentence, share your ideas and suggestions on aspects of a stress-free exams or of stress-free exams. So when we're talking about on aspects of stress-free exams, we mean on parts of stress-free exams. Another way to use aspect as a part of something could be when you're visiting somebody's home. You want to say what your favorite part of their house is. So you could say, my favorite aspect of your home is the large garden. That's basically a way of saying, my favorite part of your home is the large garden. Try and put this word aspect in your own sentence. This next expression is burn the midnight oil. Burn the midnight oil. One more time. Burn the midnight oil. This is an expression, but we sometimes treat it as a verb simply because it starts with a verb. It means to work very late at night. So how would we put that expression in a sentence? Well, you could say, I'll need to burn the midnight oil if I want to get my work ready for tomorrow. Let's think about burning the midnight oil. Can you burn the midnight oil in the afternoon? No. Do you burn the midnight oil at 9 a.m. in the morning? No. To burn the midnight oil is to work very late at night. It has to be really done at night. It usually means to stay up after the time you would usually go to bed to do that extra little bit of work. We usually burn the midnight oil when we're a little bit behind on our work. But sometimes we burn the midnight oil because we're just extra motivated to get our work done. Do you think burning the midnight oil is usually a pleasant experience? No. Most people prefer not to be working very late at night. As I said, if you're burning the midnight oil, you've usually fallen behind in your work. And the reason you're staying up so late at night is so you can catch up. This expression, by the way, comes from a time before electric lighting when we used to light lamps on the street with oil. So it really just means burning that oil. Try and put this expression in your own sentence. The next word is clinically proven. Clinically proven. One more time. Clinically proven. Clinically proven is an adjective. It just means something shown scientifically through tests. Or more specifically, proven scientifically through tests. How would we put that in a sentence? Well, you could say paracetamol is clinically proven to reduce pain. That sentence works because many scientists have shown scientifically by carrying out experiments that paracetamol reduces pain in people. We feel less pain when we take it. Therefore, Paracetamol is clinically proven to reduce pain. Try and put this adjective clinically proven in your own sentence. Good. What do you think is better evidence? Something that is clinically proven or potentially proven? Good. Clinically proven is better evidence. Clinically proven is something that's actually been scientifically shown, usually by forms of experiment. Something that's potentially proven is something that is likely proven, but there's still a little bit of doubt about it. When something is clinically proven, it sort of removes that doubt. We know now that science supports this idea. Think about medicine you might take. Would you prefer to take medicine that's clinically proven to work or isn't clinically proven to work? Good. Hopefully, you only want to take medicine that's clinically proven to work. Thankfully, this is the sort of medicine you will get from doctors and hospitals. If something is not clinically proven to work, you should always be careful about using it. This next word is consistency. 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 Consistency is a noun. It's the quality of always being the same or, or always behaving in an expected way. So, your teacher might turn around to you one day and say, your grades aren't showing much consistency. You failed last week and got an A the week before. Take a minute to think about that. Why isn't that showing much consistency if you failed last week and got an A the week before? It's not showing much consistency because you did two very different things. You failed one week and got an A the week before. Remember, consistency is always being the same or doing what's expected. So, for you to be consistent or to show consistency, either you would continuously get Fs or you would continually get As. Consistency is usually a quality that we like to see in people. It means we're better able to predict their behavior. The opposite of consistency is being erratic. That means it's very hard to predict someone's behavior. We prefer to meet people who show consistency because they are easier to be friends with. They are more reliable. Okay, try and put this word consistency in a sentence. The next word is consult. Consult. One more time. Consult. Consult is a verb. It means it's able to act or be done as one wishes. It consult does not mean able to act or be done as one wishes. Consult does not mean this. Do not pay attention to this word. Consult means to ask somebody for their opinion or their advice, usually an expert in that area. I apologize for this being here. This should not be here. This is not the definition of consult. The definition of consult is to ask for information or advice from someone because they have an expert knowledge on that subject. So, for example, you might consult a doctor. Why would you consult a doctor? Well, you'd consult a doctor because they have an expert opinion on health concerns. So, if you're looking for medical advice, you'd consult a doctor. So, you could say, I consult my doctor about my health. You might also consult your teacher about matters related to your education. However, whatever teacher wrote this definition, maybe don't consult them because this is not the definition of consult. Okay? Able to act or to be done as one wishes. No, that is not consult. Erase that from your mind. Okay, I will need to consult somebody about why this is here. Okay, let's move swiftly on. Okay, the next word is conventional. 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 Conventional is an adjective. It basically means traditional or following the behavior that most people in society consider to be normal. So there are many things we can consider conventional, like the clothes. Everybody in society wears conventional clothes. So people in Saudi Arabia have clothes that they consider conventional. And these would be the clothes that are considered normal to wear. In a different society, they might have some different conventional clothes. You can also have types of medicine which are conventional. And again, this just means the medicine that's usually taken and considered normal. For example, if you have an illness like the flu, conventional medicine would involve some type of pharmaceutical drugs like Uniflu. That's recommended by the doctor. What's the opposite of conventional? Well, you could say it's unconventional, or you could say it's alternative. How would we put this in a sentence? Well, going back to my pharmaceutical drugs, I could say pharmaceutical drugs are a type of conventional medicine. Lots of people use them in our society. Okay, try and put this word conventional in your own sentence. This next word is cranky. 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 Cranky is an adjective. It means irritable or upset quickly. So somebody who's cranky tends to get very upset very easily. Putting that in a sentence, I could say, the old man is cranky. He gets angry about everything. So, when I'm saying he gets angry about everything, I mean that he's getting upset very quickly, often over often over small things. Maybe a loud noise here, or something he didn't like in the paper. Try and put cranky in your own sentence. Now that you've done that, think about you being cranky. Do you think this is a good feeling? No, it's not. Being cranky is not something we like to experience. We don't like to get upset easily. What sort of things might make you cranky? A common thing that makes you cranky is the lack of sleep or sleep deprivation. When you lack sleep, you tend to be more irritable the next day. So that's the sort of thing that might make you cranky. Try and put this word in your own sentence. The next word is critical. 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 Critical is an adjective. It means extremely important because a future situation will be affected by it. A general definition of critical just really means extremely important. But it's important to think that in our unit this week, it's really got a specific definition in terms of medicine. So we might describe a patient being in a critical condition. And this really means he's in a condition where he could live or die. His future situation will be affected by this critical condition. So, what sort of treatment he gets while in this condition, how his body reacts to it. If a patient in critical condition didn't get any treatment, the chances are they would die. So, it's very important that we make the decisions when we're thinking about anything critical or dealing with anything critical, mainly because the future will be affected by our decisions. Try and put this word critical in your own sentence. Okay, the next word is demonstrate. Demonstrate. One more time. Demonstrate. Demonstrate is a verb. It means to show something clearly or show a fact clearly. For example, here is an experiment to demonstrate inertia. Another sentence you could use with demonstrate is let me demonstrate how science works by showing you this experiment. Notice here that I am demonstrating by showing an experiment. This is really showing a fact clearly. If I'm showing an experiment, I'm trying to show how to reach some sort of fact or how the experiment proves some sort of fact. So this would be a good demonstration of why that fact is true. Think about how you might demonstrate something, how you might show it. Well, if your teacher wondered where you were in a class one day and you said you were at the doctor, you might demonstrate that by showing a note you got from the doctor. That shows the fact clearly. It shows the fact that you were at the doctor clearly. Now, try and put this word demonstrate in your own sentence. The next word is drowsy. One more time. Drowsy. Actually, one more time again. Drowsy. Drowsy is an adjective. It means tired and almost asleep. When you are drowsy, are you asleep? No, you are not. When you are drowsy, you are almost asleep. Do you think you're motivated and energetic when you're drowsy? No, you're not motivated or energetic when you're drowsy. Well, maybe you're motivated to sleep, but that's about it. What sort of things do you think you might do when you're drowsy? Well, you'd probably yawn. That's the act of you opening your mouth very wide, like this man is doing here. You'd probably close your eyes. Close your eyes. You probably won't always be carrying a pillow around with you, so not everybody who's drowsy hugs a pillow. But you might close up your body a little bit, maybe lean over on your desk if that's nearby, and be almost asleep. Can we put this in a sentence? Well, you could say, I'm so drowsy. I'm struggling to keep my eyes open. Drowsiness is something we feel, so it's okay to say I am drowsy. That just shows that you are feeling tired and almost asleep. Do you think it's good to look drowsy in class? No. Teachers prefer their students to be alert and motivated and energetic in class. It can be difficult to learn when you're drowsy. Try and put this word drowsy in a sentence. The next word is illicit. 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 Illicit is a verb. It means to get information from someone. Or, in other words, to draw out that information from them. So, if I ask you a question, am I trying to elicit information? Yes, I am. I am trying to get you to answer the question, so I am trying to elicit information. If I ask you a question and you remain silent, am I successfully eliciting information? No. If I successfully elicit information, that means I get you to speak or respond. One way we could put this in a sentence is we could say the teacher tried to elicit a response from his students, but unfortunately they were too busy playing with their phones. So this is quite common. A teacher will often try and try to elicit information from the students. That's because the teacher wants the students to be interactive in the class, to take part in the class. And they're only able to take part by responding and sharing their own ideas. Okay, try and put this word elicit in a sentence. The next word is environment. One more time. Environment. Environment is a noun. It means a situation, thing, or people, etc., that surrounds people and affects the way in which they live and work. This is slightly different from the environment we were introduced to a long time ago in the PYD, where the environment was really used to talk about nature and the outside world. This is another meaning of environment. How would we use this in a sentence? Well, we could say lecturers, teachers, and students are all part of the university environment. That's because the university environment is the something that surrounds everybody who goes to the university. So it's the building we walk through, the classes we take part in, the actions we go through every day. This is what we call the university environment. So it's the thing that kind of surrounds us, all the people that kind of go to university. So we could say then, as we said, that lecturers, teachers, and students are part of the university environment. What else is part of the university environment? Well, classes, or taking part in classes, going to the library, relaxing with your friends, going to the canteen. These are all parts of the university environment. You might not experience the same things in other environments, and that's what makes the university environment unique. But most environments have um, their own special circumstances that make them unique in some way. The next word is fatigue. 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 Fatigue is a noun. It means a feeling of being extremely tired, usually because of hard work or exercise. You could come up with a sentence like, I think I have fatigue. I have no energy and motivation to do anything. That makes sense because when you are suffering from fatigue, it means you have no energy or motivation. Remember, when you are suffering from fatigue, you're not just tired, you're extremely tired. Even though it says we get fatigue here from hard work or exercise, technically that's not always the case. A lot of people will get fatigue from stuff like depression, for example. Depression is a common form of fatigue. A lot of people will get fatigue when recovering from an illness. Some people will get fatigue when going through the illness. For example, flu can cause fatigue. It takes away your motivation and your energy to do anything. You feel so tired that you can barely move. Try and put this word fatigue in a sentence. Here we've got a verb or an expression, have a tendency to. Have a tendency to. Again, we're simply treating this as a verb because it starts with a verb, but it's really an expression. What does it mean? It means to be likely to do something. How could we use that in a sentence? Well, we could say funny people have a tendency to tell jokes. That makes sense because funny people are likely to tell jokes. Drowsy people are likely to fall asleep. That makes sense because drowsy people who are on the edge of sleep are likely to fall asleep at some point. Intelligent people are likely to do well at tests. That makes sense because intelligent people are clever and that will help them do well at tests. So when we say they are likely to do something, we can say they have a tendency to do it. So intelligent people have a tendency to do well at tests. Try and put this word in your own sentence or this expression in your own sentences. Think about things that you have a tendency to do because of who you are and the qualities you have. This next word is interpreting. One more time. Interpreting. And again, interpreting. Interpreting, well, is introduced to us here as a noun, acting as a gerund. It means explaining or decided on the meaning of an event or statements, etc. How could we put that in a sentence? Well, we could say interpreting our meaning can be difficult if you don't speak our language. That basically just means explaining what we mean can be difficult if you don't understand what we're saying. We could use interpreting in another sentence as a gerund. We could say interpreting the results of an experiment is a key skill for every scientist. So interpreting the results of an experiment is a key skill for every scientist. That makes sense Because all scientists need to be able to explain and decide the meaning of the results of their experiments. And this isn't always as easy as some people think. That's why it's very important that scientists and people who are trained how to do it interpret the results of things like experiments. If you're not a trained person, chances are you will interpret the results incorrectly. So, try and put this word interpreting in your own sentence. The next word is intrinsic. 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 Intrinsic is an adjective. It means part of the basic character or nature of someone or something. It basically means an essential part of someone or something. So, if you see somebody and you think their most essential quality, their most important quality is their kindness, if they didn't have that kindness, they'd be completely different. You could say, her kindness is an intrinsic part of her. When we think about what a human life is like, we could say eating and sleeping are intrinsic parts of human life. When we think of friendship, we could say communication and trust are intrinsic parts of friendship. Notice here that why these are intrinsic or intrinsic. It's because if you didn't have communication and trust, you wouldn't have friendship. You can have more things that are in friendship, for example, joking around. But if you don't have that communication and trust, you simply don't have that friendship. That's why they are intrinsic parts. They are really essential parts of what makes a friendship. Think more about this word intrinsic. Try and think of something that you consider intrinsic about yourself, that makes you who you are. Usually, this would be a quality or a trait when we're talking about people. Now that you've done that, try and put this word in a sentence. The next word is irritable. 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 We already had a synonym for irritable. Can you remember what it is? Good, it's cranky. Irritable is an adjective. It means easily annoyed or made angry. So if my father is the sort of person who gets annoyed all the time and is made angry by little things, I could say he's irritable. I could say my father is very irritable. He gets angry about everything. Do you think being irritable is a good quality? No. Being irritable is not a good quality. It can be annoying to see it in other people. We don't like when they get angry easily. And it can be annoying experiencing it ourselves because we don't like to get angry easily. Think about this word irritable. Can an item get irritable? No. Similar to being cranky, only a person can be irritable. What sort of things might make you irritable? Well, we already mentioned with being cranky that a lack of sleep might make you irritable. What else might make you irritable? A common one is traffic or being on the road. So, lots of people get annoyed by traffic. That's when lots of cars are in front of each other and behind each other so nobody can move, or they're moving very slowly. This annoys lots of people. Maybe driving on the road and meeting other drivers will also make you irritable. You can become easily annoyed at other drivers. So you could say driving makes you irritable. In fact, there's a word for that. We call it road rage. Getting this sort of angriness when you're only on the road. Okay, try and put the word irritable in your own sentence. The next word is linked. 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 Linked means related or connected, often because one strategy affects or causes the other, or more specifically, because one thing affects or causes the other. Linked isn't always for a strategy. So, how would that work? Well, you could say climate change is linked to burning our natural resources. How does this work? Well, we think by burning our natural resources that is having an effect on heating up our planet. So we think that the two are linked. They are connected in some way. Have they been experimentally proven? No, but we know there is a link between them. Think of other things that might be linked together. Anything that really shares a cause and effect relationship is linked. Can you think of other things that are linked? Now that you've done that, try and put this word linked in a sentence. The next word is maintain. Maintain is a verb. Let's slow down, go back to pronunciation. Maintain. Maintain. As mentioned, maintain is a verb. It means to make something continue in the same way or at the same standard as before. So you usually like to maintain good a good condition or good qualities. So for example, here, this waitress, she's maintaining the standards of the restaurant. What are the standards of the restaurant? Keeping the tables clean. She's maintaining these standards by cleaning the tables. We could also use it in a more student-friendly context by saying she'll maintain her good grades throughout the PYD. That basically means she'll keep the same standard of good grades throughout the PYD. Try and put this word maintain in your own sentence. Remember, maintain is a verb, it's something we do. The next expression is to make something a priority. To make something a priority. One more time. Make something a priority. To make something a priority, as I said, is an expression, but it can be treated as a verb simply because it begins with the verb. To make something a priority is to make that something your main concern or most important task. So, you might have a teacher say something like, you need to make studying a priority. Your grades are falling. So here, the teacher might be saying, you need to make studying your main concern and the most important thing to you. Why? Because your grades are falling. If you study, you'll pick up your grades. If you're worried about not seeing your family, if you're away from home, and you realize this, you might say something like, I need to make visiting my family a priority. That just means you're going to move visiting your family to being some main concern of yours. So you're going to find the time to do it. Try and put this expression, make something a priority, in your own sentence. This next verb is nod off. Nod off. Nod off. Nod off is a verb that means to fall asleep by accident. Here we see an example of a man who has nodded off. He nodded off in the meeting. And as you can see, everybody is a little bit surprised by this, and this poor woman looks upset. Can you nod off when you're awake? No, it means to fall asleep. Do you nod off on purpose? No. When you nod off, you fall asleep by accident. You don't intend to do it. How do you think you might feel after you nod off in a meeting? Would you feel happy or would you feel embarrassed? You'd probably feel embarrassed. What do you think you could do to stop yourself nodding off? Well, one thing you could do is drink some coffee. That would make you more alert. Another common technique is to splash some cold water in your face. How would we put it in a sentence? Well, you could say, I need to drink a coffee. I don't want to nod off during the meeting. Try and put this verb nod off in a sentence. This next collection of words is over the course of. Over the course of. One more time. Over the course of. Over the course of is a prepositional phrase. It means during a period of time or a process. So putting that in a sentence, we could say over the course of the summer holidays, I learned how to build a computer. One more time. Over the course of the summer holidays, I learned how to build a computer. When did that happen? Did that happen after the summer holidays? No. Did it happen before the summer holidays? No. It happened during the summer holidays. So at some point from when the holidays started to where the holidays finished. During. So when we are using over the course of, we really mean during a process. So over the course of my treatment, I developed a positive outlook. This positive outlook did not exist before the experience, but came about during the treatment, over the course of. Try and put this prepositional phrase over the course of in your own sentence. Good. Now that you've done that, try and really remember this one. This is an excellent time transition. It's very useful when telling a story. The next word is potential. 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 Potential is a noun. It means the possibility that something will develop or happen in a particular way. We often say to children, you have great potential. That means children have a lot of possibilities before them. Because they're still developing, they can develop in many directions. Do you think it would be common to tell an old person who is maybe um, very sick that they have potential? Probably not. They really don't have time to develop in a particular way. So it's not very common to hear that expression being said to older people, but we often say it to young people. How would I use that in a sentence? I could say, my child has the potential to be a famous footballer. Is my child a famous footballer? No. But my child has the ability to develop into a famous footballer. We often say somebody has potential when we notice they are good at something, but they have the ability to be much better. So, one of my favorite things about teaching in the PYD is most of the students you encounter have the potential to be good at English. That means they have the ability to be good at English. Some of the students you encounter have the ability to be excellent at English. So, in other words, they have the potential to be excellent at English. Try and put this word potential in your own sentence. This word is pretty well. Pretty well. Pretty well. Pretty well is an adverb. It means in a rather good, reasonable, or competent way. What might you do pretty well at? I did pretty well on the test. That means you did good, reasonably good on the test. I did pretty well at my presentation. That means you did pretty good at the presentation. Did you do perfectly at the presentation? Probably not. Did you do bad at the presentation? No, you didn't. You did rather good. Pretty well is an expression we often use when we want to be modest. So even though I just said usually we use it when we don't get top marks, we sometimes use it if we're wanting to be modest. So even if you did get full marks, but you didn't want to tell somebody, and you didn't want to come off as cocky, if they ask you how you did, you might say, I did pretty well. When somebody says they did pretty well, you can assume they did good. How good they did is never quite explained, but you know it's rather good, reasonable, and that you'd probably be happy with how well they did. This next word is recover. 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 Recover is a verb. It means to get better after an illness, injury, or shock. How would you put that in a sentence? Well, you could say, I will recover from my illness, but it will take time. Why does that make sense? Well, recover is when you get better after an illness. So when I say I will recover from my illness, I'm just saying I will get better from my illness. Who do you think recovers, the patient or the doctor? Good. The patient usually recovers. The doctor usually gives a treatment, and the patient recovers over time. If you were going through something like sleep deprivation, how might you recover? Well, you might recover by getting some quality sleep. Remember, sleep deprivation is a lack of sleep, so the best way to recover from that is to get some good sleep. Try and put this word recover in your own sentence. The next word is reliable. 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 Reliable is an adjective. It means able to be trusted or dependable. A good example of a sentence is to say, my friend is reliable. I can always trust him to support me. People are not the only things that we want to be reliable. We sometimes want objects or items to be reliable. For example, weighing scales. If I'm weighing something, I want my weighing scales to be reliable. If I put an item on my weighing scales, and it says it weighs 5 kilograms, and then I put it back on, and it says it weighs 3 kilograms, and then I put it back on, and it says it weighs 8 kilograms, I don't know how much my object weighs. That's because my weighing scales is not reliable. I cannot depend on it. I cannot trust the measurement it's given me. Other things we might want to be reliable are medication. So, if we're going to use medication to remove an illness, we want to be able to trust that medication. It's not very reliable if it works on some people and doesn't work on others. Try and put this word reliable in your own sentence. Good. Now that you've done that, do you think being reliable is a good thing or a bad thing? Being reliable is a good thing. We like things that are reliable. And being reliable is very important. For example, when we conduct experiments, we need our experiments to be reliable. If they keep giving different results, then how can we show that they are proving anything? Let's move to the next word. This next word is reset. 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 Reset is a verb. It means to return to a regular position or state. How would you put that in a sentence? Well, the first thing you should do is think of things that you can reset. Can you reset a shoe? No. Can you reset a hat? No. Can you reset a phone? Yes, you can. If you reset a phone, it means you are returning it to its original settings. Can you reset an alarm? Yes, you can. To reset an alarm means to change the alarm time. So to bring it back to its um, starting position so you can set a new time. What else might you reset? Good. You can reset a lot of electronic devices. So you can reset your TV or you can reset your iPad. This really just means to kind of bring back to original settings. Putting that in a sentence, you could say, I need to reset my iPad to its original settings. Try and put this word reset in your own sentence. The next word is revolutionized. 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 Revolutionized is an adjective. It means to completely or have completely changed the way people think or do things. Think about things that have been revolutionized. What can you come up with? One thing that people often come up with is science. So, for example, you could say genetic engineering has revolutionized science. We do things in completely different ways now. That's a key part of revolutionizing something. When something's revolutionized, you don't do it in the old ways. You've completely changed the way people think and do things. Try and put this word revolutionized in your own sentence. Before you do so, think of different areas or different fields that have been revolutionized. Think of things like computers, communication, or maybe information. You might have thought of things like, wow, Google has completely revolutionized the way we find information. And that's true. Before Google and before we had the internet, we used to just go, or before search engines even, when we wanted information, we'd usually go to a library. We'd have to get the information from books. These days, we simply Google it. That's one way how information has been revolutionized. Okay, let's move to the next word. The next word is risk factors. Risk factors. Risk factors. Risk factors are or is a noun. It means something that is likely to hurt you or be dangerous. So something that is likely to hurt you or be dangerous. So you could say there are lots of risk factors linked to obesity. Lots of risk factors linked to obesity. Some of these risk factors would be cancer, mood disorders, heart disease, liver disease. There are other things that are not mentioned here, such as smoking is associated with obesity, and obviously eating lots of food also. These are all likely to hurt you or be dangerous if you are obese. So they're all linked to obesity. Can you think of any risk factors linked to smoking? Risk factors linked to smoking. Okay, now that you've done that, try and put risk factors in a sentence. The next verb or verbal phrase is to run something by. When you run something by somebody, you're having them consider it. So to have someone consider is when you run something by them. How would you put that in a sentence? You could say, Something like, let me run those ideas by you. You might like some of them. What I'm doing there is I'm having somebody consider my ideas. That's just something. That's what I'm running by them. So by having them consider them, they might like them um, because they're going to think about them. So when we run something by them, we give them the information on whatever that something is, and then the person considers that. They think about it. Try and put run something by in a sentence. The next word is shut eye. Shut eye. Shut eye. Shut eye is a noun, and it's just an informal way of saying sleep. So a common expression is I need to catch some shut eye. Why? I have an early start tomorrow. That's just a way of saying I need to sleep. When do you think you can catch shut eye? Can you catch some shut eye in the middle of the day? Yeah, you can. We call it taking a nap. Taking a nap is also sleeping. So you can catch some shut eye during the day. When you take a power nap, you're also taking some shut eye. Shut eye is just a really informal way of explaining any type of sleep. What about the sleep you take at night? Is that catching some shut eye? Yes, it is. So when you're talking about shut eye, it doesn't need to just be the sleep at night. It could be about a nap or a power nap. It's a very informal expression. Try and put this word shut eye in a sentence. The next word is skeptical. 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 Skeptical is an adjective. It means to be unsure, doubtful, or questioning. What would you be skeptical about? Well, you'd be skeptical about something that you are not sure is true. So you might turn around and say something, I am skeptical about whether that is true. So if you hear somebody say something and they're saying it's a fact, but you have some information in your mind to kind of tell you that that might not be true, you are skeptical. You might not have enough information in your mind to tell you what they're saying is 100% false, but you do have enough information in your mind to question what they're saying. So you remain skeptical. You're unsure and you're doubtful about whether what they said is true. Sometimes when I watch stuff like American politics, I'm skeptical about what I hear. So I'm not quite sure whether the American politicians are telling the truth. Think about other things you might be skeptical about. Then try and put this word skeptical in a sentence. The next word is sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation. Deprivation is a noun. It means a lack of sleep. How would you put that in a sentence? I suffer from sleep deprivation. I only manage to sleep 2 hours every night. What things might give you sleep deprivation? Well, a lot of these words are linked with sleep deprivation. So if you spend many nights up late, that means you will get a lack of sleep. So late nights lead to sleep deprivation. Sometimes being sick leads to sleep deprivation. If you have things like unpaid bills or debt, which would cause a whole lot of stress, this would lead to sleep deprivation as well. If you have fears, worries, or anxieties, this can also lead to lack of sleep. So it can also lead to sleep deprivation. It may sound obvious, but the best way to overcome sleep deprivation is finding the time to have a good night's sleep. But this is not always easy, and sleep deprivation can become a medical condition. That way, if that's the case, you'll need a doctor to help you. They'll often give you some sort of medication like sleeping pills. This will help you get to sleep. How do you think people feel after suffering sleep deprivation? Well, the unfortunate thing if you suffer sleep deprivation means you will get more stressed. You will probably suffer more anxiety. You'll also probably be cranky and irritable. Try and put this word sleep deprivation in your own sentence. That being said, that being said, that being said. That being said means in spite of what was just said. You can ignore this part. That being said is really a transition of contrast. It's another way of saying however or on the other hand. So you could, all of these are similar ways or synonyms for that being said. So nevertheless, however, otherwise, in any case, these are all synonyms for that being said. Remember, we can use it as a transition of contrast. So I could say something like Saudi Arabia is a dry country. That being said, it's raining today. Notice how I could easily swap that's being said with however. So Saudi Arabia is a dry country, however, it's raining today. In a lot of situations, you can do that. So this one's a good one to keep in mind for your writing. You're all able to use transitions of contrast at this stage, so keep this one in mind going forward. The next word is tolerate. 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 Tolerate is a verb. It means to accept something you do not like. So, I don't like students using mobile phones in my class, but I am able to tolerate it. That basically, I don't like it, but I accept it. I accept that it will happen. Think of other things you might tolerate. Well, sometimes you probably tolerate people. For example, if you go to the library and you are reading a book and you want the library to be quiet, and a group of people sit down at a table and start quietly talking amongst themselves, this might kind of annoy you. After all, you came to the library to get away from noise. However, you'll probably tolerate it. You'll accept it. You'll understand that this is something you might do with your friends. So even though you don't like it, you'll put up with it. That's what tolerate really means. To accept or put up with something, even though you don't like it. Try and think of things that you tolerate, things that you don't like, but accept. Once you've done that, try and put this verb tolerate in a sentence. Well done. We finally made it to the last slide. So here we're going to be introduced with the verb touch on. Again, touch on. Touch on. When we touch on something, we really mean just to mention it. To speak briefly about something without going into the details. So, to one more time, to speak briefly about something without going through the details. So, if your teacher covered a topic yesterday and then today decides to touch on that topic, that means they might mention it briefly, but then they will move on to something else. For example, I could use that in a sentence by saying, I will touch on yesterday's vocabulary before teaching today's grammar. That just means at the beginning of the class, you'll mention a little bit about yesterday's vocabulary, but you won't go too far into the details before moving on to today's grammar. So you're just going to briefly mention something, in this case, the vocabulary. Before moving on, when we touch on something, do you think we talk about it a lot? No, we don't talk about it a lot. We just mention it or speak briefly about it. Why do you think we touch on things? Well, we either touch on things to briefly give somebody new information or to remind somebody of something that they should already know. We touch on things for those reasons. But things that we touch on are never the main focus of what we're talking about. Try and put this verb touch on in your own sentence. Okay, well done. We finally made it to the end of this very long video. Well done if you made it all the way through to the end. Okay, so in this video, we introduced the words, we introduced the part of speech as they are presented to us as words, and we talked about the definition, and we used a quick example sentence. To understand a bit more about these words and how they are used in context, it's very important that you watch the second video. This video was mainly designed to introduce you to the words and to give you some foundation that you can build on in your own time. Try and make sure that you do that. Okay, thank you for listening.